Kia ora, hello, and welcome to Anyway, the podcast where I unpack the chaos of reality TV. I am your host, Natalie McMurray, coming to you from Aotearoa, New Zealand. Today, we're revisiting an old friend, the devil herself, and don't you forget it. That's right, we're diving into House of Stassi, episode 1. We opened with Stassi walking into a testimonial. She's pretty jazzed that they're working with that Disney money. And who can blame her? Disney makes a profit of like $12 billion a year or something. Stassi wants to tell the kids who she is. She was the star of Vanderpump Rules for 8 seasons. We then get a montage of content creators bigging Stassi up. She explains that she was kind of a villain on the show, and we see people talking about the slap heard around the world, which I think we can all agree Kristen completely deserved. Kristen had doubled, tripled, quadrupled down on the fact that her and Jax did not fuck. When, in fact, they did. Not once, but twice. One of those times while watching the 2011 Ryan Gosling movie Drive. I've never seen Drive, so I can't speak to its aphrodisiac effects, but Ryan Gosling does have a certain allure to him. Anyway, enough about Ryan Gosling. That man gets far too much attention. Back to Stassi. She says, and then, womp womp womp, 2020 hits. Stassi gets booted off VPR and cancelled in general, which was a consequence of her and Kristen's actions in 2018. In 2018, Kristen and Stassi reported their black co-worker Faith to the police for a crime that she did not commit, which is obviously incredibly fucked up. While I'm clearly not down with any of that shit, I don't necessarily agree with cancelling people. And I think as a whole, we've come to the understanding that people should be able to apologize for their shitty actions and move forward in a better way. And from what I can tell, Stassi has done and is doing that. Anyway, she tells us that she's not exactly the Stassi we saw on Vanderpump. Cut to a montage of her cussing people the fuck out in present day. Well, relatively present days. She says, but that Stassi may just still be a wee bit in there. She talks about starting over, and we get clips of her and Beau and their adorable children, Hartford and Messer. Stassi says that she demanded that Hulu give her a show, which really speaks to her power, honestly. She talks about being on Vanderpump Villa with Lisa, which I've seen seasons 1 and 2 of, but not 3. Because fuck dad talk, quite frankly. Although I'm sure they're only on 1 or 2 episodes, so I might just skip those and watch the rest at some point. I don't know. Anywho, Stassi tells us that from Vanderpump Villa, she got to shoot some test footage for her own show. Stassi says that shooting a reality show, hard truths will come to the surface, which is like, no fucking shit. Of course they will. A producer asked Stassi where she thinks they should start. She votes test shoot, the footage that got Hulu to buy the show. The producer says that wasn't supposed to air though, but because Stassi herself is a producer on the show, she explains that people need backstory, context, and she says it's good drama. We then get some creepy Stepford Wives-like music and see the text, Chapter 1, the test shoot. Then, 1 hour before the drama, bom bom bom, we find ourselves in a barbecue setting. Stassi is talking to Taylor, her best friend, about her bloodshot eye. She says she looks like she has a Walking Dead disease. Honestly, bloodshot eyes are pretty scary. I had 2 bloodshot eyes on Sunday stepping off a plane in Auckland. My daughter looked at me and was all, Mama, what's wrong with your eyes? I looked in the mirror and I looked like I wanted to murder someone, not just because I'd been on a plane for 7 hours. Taylor says her dad is an eye surgeon, and he said that that can happen one of 2 ways: lifting heavy things or straining to poop. Neither of which I did on my flight home, FYI, but also probably TMI. Anyway, we see Stassi in her earlier test shoot testimonial. She says it feels like she never left reality TV, and her goal is to be Kris Jenner. She has mad respect for the Kardashians, which who amongst us doesn't? She wants to have a finger in every pie, all while doing it with her family. She then tells us about her husband Beau and how he takes care of their house, and that everything they do is 50-50, except Beau does meals and he does drop off every day. So I guess the math ain't mathing on that one. Stassi then tells us about her sister Georgie. She says she's like a starving artist with zero practical skills. She tells us about Taylor. Taylor is her best friend and her work wife, although Taylor has an actual wife called Teddy. We see Taylor saying that she was married to a man for a while and she thought she was straight her whole life. But one day had the urge to kiss a woman. I don't know whether that was Teddy or not. I guess that was once her marriage had ended. I don't really know the details. She says that she didn't really have the urge to go down on a woman though, but that's kind of a deal breaker in the lesbian world. So she put on her big girl panties and started eating puss. Stassi tells us about Rob, Beau's best friend. Rob is seemingly a man-child. She then introduces us to Georgia, who is Beau's sister and who is also from Italy. According to Stassi, Georgia likes to stay with them a whole heap when she's over on vacation, which would be kind of annoying. She's apparently obsessed with Beau. Beau tells us that they share a birth father and he learned of her when he was 21. He tells us that she's like super glued to him. Sounds healthy. She wants to be with him 24/7 and they give off couple vibes when they're together. It's very much giving that weird phenomenon of biological relatives meeting later in life and falling in love. The obsession becomes evident when Stassi tells us that they have matching tattoos of each other's names. We get a shot of Beau's tattoo of his sister's name. Not only is the tattoo super weird because it's an homage to his sister, but also the kerning on that tattoo is so completely off, it's not even funny. The A on the end doesn't even look like it's a part of the word. It's basically an orphan. Although, in terms of typography, an orphan is usually a single line of text in a paragraph that gets stranded somewhere all alone to fend for itself. I guess what we're looking at here with this weird ass tattoo is a grapheme split. A broken word, essentially. My guess is that Beau got the tattoo on a whim. He went to the studio and chose a font from dafont.com. No shade to them, I used their services a lot in my early days as a graphic designer. But I can almost guarantee that he chose a crappy half-complete script font where the creator has taken zero time to account for how letters actually look together and the spacing between them. And this is why you don't use janky-ass fonts when getting a tattoo, because this kind of shit is bound to happen. Trust me, I know all too well the perils of bad typography being permanently etched onto one's body. Anyway, Stassi is disturbed by the tattoo. And unlike me, it's not because of the kerning. She says that not only did the tattoo blow up a barbecue, but it nearly caused an international incident. Georgie, Stassi's sister, not to be confused with Georgia, Beau's sister, wants to talk about Italy. We rewind to footage from the end of Vanderpump Villa season 2 of Stassi losing her shit about the tattoo and how she wants her name tattooed on Beau's body. Which is petty, but like, I get it. It's a bit fucking weird to have your sister's name tattooed on you, but not your wife. And it's not like Beau is exactly that discerning when it comes to the things that he's getting tattooed on his body. I mean, that's pretty evident by the quality of the Georgia tattoo and, well, quite a few of the other tattoos that I can see. And like Stassi said, it's not really about the tattoo. It's about making your wife feel like she's a priority. We see footage of Vanderpump Rules Stassi coming back to haunt Beau, the old dark passenger herself. Stassi says to Beau, "You feel safe with me, but I can make you feel unsafe." Anyway, the whole night, which I believe was Stassi's birthday, completely unraveled. Beau kind of acted like a victim in the scenario, which is not exactly the case. Cut back to the test footage of this barbecue they're at, discussing the Italy situation. Teddy tells Stassi that the whole thing made her really uncomfortable. Turns out they were all uncomfortable with what had happened. As a response, Stassi says, imagine getting married to someone, having 2 kids with them, and they draw the line at not wanting to get your name tattooed on them. And she's correct. That is fucked up. Is it grounds for divorce? Not in my mind. But obviously they're still together, so that didn't happen. Stassi says to us she had no idea that a fight between her and her husband would affect them so deeply. She says they all need to get a fucking hobby, which I kind of agree with. But also, if you're on holiday all together and there's been a massive bust up in front of everyone, it's kind of definitely a fucking downer. I can fully relate to where Stassi is coming from in this moment. She's basically being painted out to be a crazy bitch. And maybe she is being a bit of a crazy bitch. But who the fuck amongst us isn't from time to time? The extremely frustrating part is that Stassi has a valid point. and that she just wants Beau to acknowledge her in some way, shape, or form. She says she wants him to get a tattoo of her name, even though she could really care less about the stupid fucking tattoo. It's about the gesture of it all. But instead, she turns into the monster, and everyone feels sorry for Beau because he's being terrorized by said monster. The monster that he decided to marry. The monster that he decided to have kids with. The monster that he's choosing to stay with. At some point, Beau will need to take some accountability for his own actions that led to these fucked up situations too. Come on now. Stassi is saying to Georgia, you're never going to look at Beau and think that he's doing anything wrong. Georgia says, no, that's not true. And Beau is all, no, that's not the case. We then see Stassi look deep into the camera, out to all of us. And she says with her eyes, can you fucking believe all of these people are out here trying to gaslight me? I can believe it. And it's pretty fucking funny that they're doing it on camera. Beau gets frustrated and he says that he thinks the barbecue situation is reigniting the fire that they had in Italy. Stassi feels some type of way about her friends and family coming so hard at her, which is pretty fucking, yeah, I would be upset. She thinks that she deserves some grace, considering the fact that she has tried to be the best version of herself for the last 5 years. They leave the barbecue, and Stassi is upset that Beau is getting the wounded animal treatment every time, which I totally get. She tells us in her testimonial that after that, if the show gets greenlit, that cannot happen again. The producer says, but it did happen again. We then get footage of people yelling at Stassi that Beau is afraid of her, and then her having an absolute meltdown. Fun stuff. We arrive at Chapter 2, Mothering versus Motherhood, which takes place present day, which is not actually present day for us, but whatever. You get it. You see Stassi getting onto a private jet. She says that she does not normally go on PJs. She says that she's on her way to a work event for Alex Cooper of Call Her Daddy and Unwell Network fame. Stassi has no idea how to act on a private jet, which is another thing I can relate to. Not that I've ever been on a private jet, but on the flight that we took on Sunday, we paid extra for Air New Zealand Sky Couch. And honestly, I was like, this must be what first class is like. Which just goes to show that I've never been in first class. Because I'm sure it's a lot fucking fancier than a Sky Couch. I also had to share the Sky Couch with a 6-year-old. So it wasn't even really that comfortable. The only scenario which I can imagine the Sky Couch being an asset is where you have it all to yourself. But then it's like, do you have to pay for the whole row of seats and the Sky Couch fee on top of that? At that point, you would be paying the same as a first class seat anyway, so there's really no point at all. Anywho, Stassi tells us that she's saying yes to every opportunity that's coming her way. And she's incredibly grateful to have Beau, who can be there at home and present with her kids. Over at their house, Beau is trying to kick off a dance party with Hartford and Messer. Hartford isn't having a bar of it. She's all, no, Dad. We're doing costumes? Duh. A producer asks how he feels about being Mr. Mom, which is kind of offensive. Like, lots of men stay at home with their kids, don't they? I don't know. Over on the PJ, Taylor arrives in a matching trench coat. Taylor in a testimonial tells us that when she first met Stassi, she was a lot nicer than Taylor thought she would be. I guess her reputation preceded her. But that the psycho still lives inside of her, which she loves. Before they take off, Stassi feels the need to let Taylor know that more plane crashes happen on private jets. To which I would be screaming, waiter, more champagne for the ride, please. I don't know if they have waiters or not. It's probably uncouth to do that. That's probably why I would never be allowed on a private jet. They arrive in Vegas for the event, and they're there to interview the Mormon wives. Alex Cooper comes in to chat with Stassi. Stassi has just one question for Alex. What part of your life is fucked up because you work so much? Alex says her health is bad, which, I mean, honestly, it doesn't look like it is, but looks can be deceiving, I guess. Which is also, I guess, why she has a company called Unwell. Question mark? I don't know. Alex tells her that she's happy for Stassi because she's always been consistent and that her brand has always stayed the same, but she's grown as a person. She says, you're not afraid to be imperfect, which is why people love you. Which is so true. People want authenticity at the end of the day, which is why I prefer Threads over Instagram. If you're on both, you get it. Pretty much everyone is unhinged on Threads. I fucking love it. We see Stassi, Taylor, and some of the Mormon wives attending Paris Hilton's DJ set. Then we see them headlining Alex Cooper's event with their interview with the Mormon wives. And then they go to after drinks with other people from Hulu/Disney. Stassi has a FaceTime with Beau, and her kids are throwing the biggest wobblies ever. Beau was like, "Can I have a minute to talk, please?" And he looks stressed the F out. And Stassi is like, "In the middle of all the tantrums, could you find a minute to call the party planner about Halloween, please?" Which is hilarious. Before leaving Vegas, Stassi and Taylor are meeting Jessie from Mormon Wives, who is divorcing her gross husband. While I don't condone cheating, good for her. He seems like a complete piece of shit, so God bless. Jessie tells Stassi that she has tea for her about Sheena. Sheena Shea from Vanderpump Rules, to be clear. I better be careful about saying her name too much because she's like the Candyman of reality TV. Stassi says she cannot get away from this woman. She's having a premonition of her own funeral where Sheena shows up and makes it about herself. Apparently, Sheena told Jessie that she's walking away from Bravo, which I'm almost certain was the other way around, and wanted to know if Jessie had any upcoming events. She then told her that Brock, Sheena's cheating Australian husband, he might actually be a New Zealander. I don't know. Grew up a Mormon. So Sheena's wondering whether she could be on Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. At this point, I feel like Sheena Shea is somewhere filling in paperwork to convert to Mormonism. Sheena belongs on the Valley. We all know this. She belongs on the Valley, fighting and then going through conflict resolution with Lala, and then telling us about the cheating of it all with Brock. You know it's true, Sheena. Stassi talks to Jessie about how she's excited to film a show with people she actually loves and cares about. She then says that Katie may be joining the show. Queen Katie Maloney from Vanderpump Rules, who Stassi used to be really good friends with, but they had a falling out. And Stassi tells us that she ghosted the friendship. Stassi wants to reconnect with Katie and have a conversation with her about what's gone down. We're back in LA and it's the day of Stassi's Halloween party. Stassi is obsessed with Halloween. She throws a party every year. Stassi then tells us the second bit of family drama that's gone down on Vanderpump Villas. This happened on season 3, so I'm not privy to this information. And honestly, I find it a little confusing. Something about Stassi's sister Georgie moving to LA and wanting to stay with Stassi and Beau, which I assume Stassi wasn't down with. But Georgia, Beau's sister, is staying with them. And Georgie is staying with Taylor, Stassi's best friend. I don't know. I'm confused. Did that make sense? I don't fucking know. Anyway, Stassi tells Beau that Katie is coming to the Halloween party, and we find out that Beau is not a fan of Katie. I guess because he thought that she got too big for her boots and kind of abandoned Stassi when she was cancelled, which it does seem like that may have actually happened. He's apprehensive about them rekindling their friendship. Bing! We get to Chapter 3, Ghosts of Past, Present, and Future. We see everyone arriving at the party. The theme is bubonic plague. And Teddy, Taylor's wife, arrives as the Grinch. Which I find extremely perplexing, although she's pregnant, so I guess she gets a pass. She did look good as the Grinch. Taylor arrives as Blake Lively, who she says is the bubonic plague of our time. I'd like to say that I could definitely think of a few other people in the US who I could compare to an infectious disease spread by fleas. We see Georgie arrive, and Stassi is fucking pissed. She thinks Georgie looks better than her. She's gagged at the audacity. Georgie is like, "I win Halloween, bitch." We then see Katie arrive with her boyfriend. Katie tells us that Stassi asked her to be a part of the show, which she finds kind of weird because they haven't spoken in years. Cue a wolf howling at the moon. Katie comes over to Stassi and they seem awkward as fuck. Stassi is like, "I'm into this satanic shit," referring to their costumes. Well, I assume referring to Katie's costume because she's dressed as like a cult leader or member or something. Her boyfriend has a Dia de los Muertos half candy skull painted on his face, which is not satanic at all. Anyway, Stassi wants to have a one-on-one convo with Katie, but not at the Halloween party. So they're going to meet up tomorrow to talk. Later on, Georgie pulls Stassi for a chat. She's written her feelings down in a letter, because Stassi apparently has the tendency to bamboozle people in the moment. She starts reading the letter, and Stassi is calling ChatGPT on this shit. which it turns out she's correct about. Stassi basically says, "This is definitely a you problem," and then tells her sister not to fucking cry. As someone with an older sister, I learned pretty early on that my sister didn't want to hear about my feelings on really any matter, which I understand. Everyone's going through shit. Just because they're your blood relative doesn't mean that they deserve the burden of your emotional baggage. So I feel bad for Georgie in this moment, but I also see Stassi's point. She feels Georgie is playing the victim, which she also has to deal with when it comes to Beau as well. They haven't resolved shit, but Stassi says she wants Georgie to come and stay at their house anyway, because family. The next day, we get chapter 4. New Stassi versus new Katie? Question mark. Stassi arrives at the Belmont to meet Katie. Katie arrives and straight off the bat, she's like, "Why did you ghost me?" Stassi tells her that she felt like anytime she tried to share anything with Katie about her life, it fell on deaf ears. And that all Katie wanted to talk about was Vanderpump Rules. She brings up an instance where she was crying to Katie about postpartum shit. And Katie was scrolling on her phone and then was like, "Oh my God, look how far the sandwich shop has come." Which, if that's true, that's pretty fucking messed up. Stassi ultimately says that she felt like Katie just didn't care. Katie says she doesn't remember that instance, and Stassi is like, "Thank you for proving my point." Katie says Vanderpump Rules was her whole life at that time, and that when you're in it, that is everything to you. Stassi says that she loved VPR, and because she didn't choose to leave, it hurt to hear about it all the time. And inexplicably, Sheena Shea gets another mention. When Stassi says, "You had your birthday party and you decided to invite Sheena over me." I'm not sure on the timeline of all of this, but Katie and Sheena have had a pretty rocky go of it when it comes to their friendship. So that's a pretty big fuck you to Stassi. Katie basically says, "Ghosting is not the answer. Whether you thought I could handle the truth or not, you owed it to me to have a conversation." She then says, "You just make your world smaller to the point where if they don't come out of you, if they're not married to you, and if they're not on your fucking payroll, they don't get to be in your life." Ding! Dark side passenger mode activated. LOL. Love the editors of this show. Stassi says in her confessional, and that is exactly the fucking reason we need Katie Maloney on this show. Katie isn't scared of Stassi. She's not scared to tell her the truth. Stassi admits that she shouldn't have ghosted Katie. They both get emotional and say that they want to be a part of each other's lives. They then have a bitch sesh about how Vanderpump Rules villainized all the females and always covered for the males. She says she has mixed feelings towards VPR because it gave her so many opportunities, but it also normalized and rewarded so much darkness. Stassi questions whether she's being a dumb bitch coming back to reality TV, because in a way, it's fucked her over. But it's also given her so much, and she loves it. Lucky for her, she's an EP on her own show. Stassi asks Katie if she wants to be on the show. Katie says yes. She's hesitant, but she says yes. They're both excited by the prospect of being able to do it on their own terms. And that's where the episode ends. I'm aware that all episodes are available to watch now, but I'll be watching one a week because, well, I have other shit I need to do. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for listening. See ya. Wouldn't want to be ya.